So Taki, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the former Venda, Limpopo. Now it is called Bembe district. I grew up in the rural village of Busta Maungani, which is one of those former German missions. Yes, so I grew up there until the age of 6, and then we moved to a township called Shayandima, which is where we live now.
And what was your dream career when you grew up?
Dr. Nick, I will be very honest with you and Pongo. I never had career dreams as a child. All I knew was that I needed to be financially independent, not wealthy, just financially independent and self-sufficient. And I knew that in order to have that, I needed to work hard. And I had the advantage of my father, who was a teacher by profession. And he instilled the values of reading and learning and education. And he would tell us on a regular basis that education is the only thing that will give you a brighter future. All my siblings studied in boarding school. I'm the only one that grew up with my parents at home. And he relentlessly woke me up almost every day to force me to go to school, because I am not a morning person. Even today, my colleagues know I am not a morning person. So he would wake me up and take me to the bathroom and say, wash your face with cold water so that you go to school. Because if you don't go to school, if you don't get educated, you are going to be an underdog. And today, looking at where I am grateful to the tenacity of my father. And it is just unfortunate that he is late and he has not lived to see the fruit of his work.
So your father was your inspiration?
Yes. And my mother as well, who was a very graceful woman. And today, as I am growing older and getting more matured, I know that in my own way I do have the grace of my mother, and a combination of the values instilled in me by both my parents just make me a holistic and all-rounded person.
And where did you start your career?
I studied law. Maybe let's just start there. I studied law at the University of Venda, and I proceeded to the University of the Witwatersrand, where I did my LLB and higher diploma in company law. My first degree was a B Juris, and then I got admitted as an advocate. And then shortly thereafter, then I got a job in intelligence. And my mentor was Professor Fink Haysom, who was the legal advisor to President Mandela. So when I started working in intelligence, that department was part of the presidency. So I was shuttling between the presidency and intelligence and the Department of Justice, because there wasn't a dedicated minister for intelligence. Dala Omar was the minister responsible for intelligence, when he was also responsible for the justice portfolio. And working with Fink Haysom, who is a renowned professor of law, who also taught me, by the way, at university, human rights, helped me a great deal to settle into the world of work. Because before that, I had just done work as a part-time lecturer in administrative law. And I think working in intelligence grounded me a lot, because intelligence is a very unique environment. There you are responsible for national security. And because I joined in the advent of democracy, the focus of intelligence was no longer the military well-being of the state. We were talking about the broader notion of national security, which was about the economic, social, political, and environmental well-being of the state. And I had the luck that at university I was taught by professors that were participating in the transformation of the legal system and literature in South Africa. So it was a very interesting time for me. Now, the uniqueness of intelligence is that because you are responsible for national security, there's a particular way in which you have to conduct yourself. Who you associate with, how you behave is very important, because to qualify back in the days, you would go through a rigorous security clearance, and there would be a random vetting or security clearance procedures that are conducted. And that helped to shape the kind of person that I am. Very reserved and focusing just on the work to ensure that the well-being of the state is secured.
So where did you go, Taki? Where did you go from intelligence next?
Intelligence is a very dynamic environment, and I see a lot of that also here in Vodacom, because I did not work in intelligence operations. I worked in the policy space. I started as a ministerial advisor on law, and then I then became the head of legal services. And after 8 years of providing legal advice and writing laws, which became one of my specialty, having been mentored by Fink Haysom and some of the senior people in the Department of Justice, I then moved to electronic communications security, where we set up a greenfields operation whose focus was to provide electronic communications security for the state. And it was back in the days when cyber security was not a fashionable phenomenon. And we set up that outfit, and unfortunately things did not go well, because I think people did not understand the importance of cybersecurity back then. So after we set up the outfit, I felt that when you set up a new organization, you are not the right person to drive its operations, because you resist change. So I asked to be moved to international security, which is international relations, because I wanted to broaden my horizons on national security, so that I become an all-rounded security officer. And then I was then seconded to the Department of Foreign Affairs, which then changed to international relations. And I was then posted as ambassador. I was ambassador representing South Africa in 2 countries in Europe, in Hungary. I was based in Budapest, and I was also looking after Croatia. And I must say that one of the greatest honors that one can have as a citizen is to be given the responsibility to represent the country abroad, because you carry your country on your shoulders. And the letter of credence, which is the letter that you get given by your president when you go to the other country, says whatever she says in my name. That is a very huge responsibility, because your job when you are in that foreign country is to promote your country abroad. You have to be well versed with the national policies and be able to explain them in a manner that would woo investors to be interested in investing in your country and doing business in your country. And I really enjoyed it. Budapest was a small mission, and therefore it gave me an opportunity to shape my own program, whilst at the same time getting to understand what it means to be a diplomat. And the biggest thing that I enjoyed there was that we had a huge community of women ambassadors, and we shared experiences and lessons about our countries. And after 4 years, I requested to come back home so that I should plow back that knowledge in intelligence. I had the opportunity of going to international relations as a full-time employee, but I felt that my heart is in national security. My heart is in intelligence. And even when I got seconded to international relations, it was more about getting me to be an all-rounded security officer. And when I came back, I started again where I started when I joined intelligence, which was policy development, looking at the transformation of the intelligence services. And after 3 years, then Vodacom found me.
And when did you go to Croatia?
It was I was posted as ambassador in 2009, January, and I was there until 2012. So it was a 4-year posting. So my main country was Hungary, and Croatia was my secondary country. So I used to go to Croatia almost every month. It's a beautiful country.
So if I may ask, what was your best memory from your days as an ambassador?
It is about engaging with people from all walks of life. Firstly, what struck me was that the diplomatic community is made of people who are approaching retirement. So I remember even when I said to some of my colleagues that I am going to be an ambassador, they said to me, "Wow, you're taking a retirement job." And I said, "No, it is not a retirement job for me. I know what I want to achieve. For me, it is about broadening my horizons as a national security specialist." But being an ambassador helps you to understand different cultures and understand the policies of different countries and how they get implemented. You learn to respect the positions of other countries, and that no country's policies or no country's culture is superior to the other. When you are there representing your country, and you have to do it with confidence. The challenge that you have is to ensure that you sell your country in the best way that you can, in order to have the people have respect for you. So that is the biggest thing about diplomacy. It is about cultural diversity. It is about policy diversity, and it is also about sharing knowledge and experiences, because you learn from one another, and you are able to import certain learnings into your country, but making sure that what works for one country may not necessarily work for your country. And therefore, when you bring that knowledge home, you have to ensure that it is workshopped and you adapt it to the needs of your own country.
Now, Taki, today you are the Chief Officer at Corporate Affairs, Vodacom. Can you tell us what exactly does that entail?
Yeah, Corporate Affairs serves as an interface between the company and the external environment. And I say with confidence that there could not have been better preparation for me to be in this role than working for government in the policy environment and also being ambassador. So where I am now, I am the ambassador of Vodacom, because it is my job to go out there and conduct research about the needs of the people in the communities in which we operate. I have to make sure that we understand the needs of our stakeholders and bring that information back into the company and socialize my colleagues, especially at ExCo and all the senior executives, to understand that as a company we do not exist in a vacuum. Whatever we develop and we deploy out there should not be done in a vacuum. It should be done to meet the needs of the people that we serve. Because when I took my position as ambassador, it was shortly after the global economic crisis. And the world has changed drastically since then. The biggest takeaway from that crisis is for corporates to know that no corporate is too big to fail. And you fail if you do not interface smoothly with the external environment. And therefore, corporate affairs is a strategic business unit in the company, because you have to ensure that when there is policy evolution, be it from the ruling party and the comments made by the opposition parties, we have to make sure that our stakeholders within the company understand the impact of those policies on our business. And we have to be prepared to respond accordingly, because gone are those days where companies have to engage with stakeholders in an antagonistic fashion by waiting for government to come with policies, and then you then say you don't agree with this policy, and you're going to be flexing your muscle and challenge them in a court of law. Today, relationships are built on negotiations, which is why it is important to have corporate affairs, because once we understand the direction that the country is going, we come back into the company and we say, here is a policy that is evolving. This is the impact that it is going to have on business. Can we please assist government to shape that policy so that at the end of the day, the policy works for the betterment of all? So we see ourselves as corporate affairs as a partner of the entire business. And our main objective is to ensure that Vodacom sees itself as a partner in policy evolution and policy implementation, which is why today we go to government and we say, we know you've got the National Development Plan with several objectives and targets. There are the Sustainable Development Goals. And we ask, what can we do with our technological offerings in order to assist in service delivery? Because we are not experts on education, for instance. We are not experts on health. We are not experts on most of the things that government drives. I think the most important thing for us is to understand that policy formulation is the purview of government, and ours is to implement. And therefore, through our technological innovation, we should be seen to be transforming lives.
Now, I believe a lot of your work is based on building and empowering communities. And I've just seen your report on the great things you did in 2018. So can you tell us a little bit, what were your highlights, your, let's say, community highlights in 2018?
Well, we do a lot. And I think I need to start by sharing where we come from, because the work that we do to uplift communities where we operate from a Vodacom Foundation perspective is part of our corporate social investment responsibilities. Back in the days, corporate social investment was more about writing checks and you pose for photographs, or you just give a donation, or you become responsive, reactive, mainly to the needs of your stakeholders. We are at a space where we are becoming more proactive by starting to understand what are the needs of the communities in which we operate, guided by government policy. So we had to involve our foundation work from being a charitable organization into a developmental and strategic CSI outfit. So what we did was to step back and take stock of all the work that we did since we started involving ourselves in corporate social investment, which is about 18 years ago. And we said, what are the gains that we have made? What is it that Vodacom is known for? And we realized that because we were doing too many things and not monitoring and measuring the impact of our investment on socio-economic development, it was not clear for the communities in which we operate to understand exactly what we do. even the policy makers could not measure the impact of our work. So we had to restructure the work of the foundation and align it with the Sustainable Development Goals and the National Development Plan. And we streamlined our programs into two major programs, education and fighting gender-based violence, in partnership with government. On education, we work very closely with the Department of Basic Education, because our objective is to support government's Vision 2030 on education, which focuses on the comprehensive approach to education, where the focus is no longer just on the learner, but the focus is also on the teacher. You have to develop the teachers so that they are able to be confident to deliver the content. We are also focusing on the parents, so that they have to take responsibility for the work and the development of their children. We are also moving to a space where we want to also focus on communities, mobilizing communities to take responsibility for the infrastructure that governments set up, and also what we contribute, such as ICTs, and also focusing on the content. We do not provide our own content as Vodacom, because, as I said, we are not specialists on education. So we provide ICTs in order to ensure that the government approved curriculum is properly delivered. And then the focus also on this comprehensive approach to education is infrastructure. And that is where we fit in as Vodacom, because we are an ICT company, we are a mobile network operator. Now, as we are leaping towards the fourth industrial revolution, we now call ourselves a digital telco. And our focus is to ensure that we use ICTs to improve the quality of education. So the program that we run with the department is called the Vodacom Mobile Education Program, where we provide school connectivity. So far we've connected 3,000 schools in the country. We will be adding more schools in the next 18 months, focusing more on children with special needs. We also have 92 teacher centers that we have connected with the department, out of 147, I think, that the department has. And our focus there is to provide ICT training to the teachers so that they are confident to deliver digital content. In 10 of the teacher centers, we have the Vodacom ICT Youth Academy, where we work with partners. We have Microsoft and Cisco. This year we will be adding more partners. So in the next 3 months we will be launching new partners that we're bringing into the mix. We focus there mainly on matriculants, matric graduates who pass well, especially in math and science, but who do not have the means to go to tertiary institutions. And then we take them through basic computer literacy, those that have never used computers in their lives. And then they go through Microsoft certification and Cisco certification. And we have now added an enterprise development angle to that through a company that Vodacom set up in 2014 called the Innovator Trust, which focuses on SMME development. It's SMME in the ICT sector. Now, what we pick up when we engage with the young people in the youth academy is that not all of them want to be employees. There are those who demonstrate the appetite to be entrepreneurs, but they do not have the necessary support to start a business or to run a business. And therefore what the Innovator Trust does, it provides a bespoke training that focuses on financial management, tax management, preparing supply chain management, document and related business courses. And we launched this, I think, about 2 years ago with about 10 young people from the Youth Academy. And we are growing that to about 30, I think, this year. And this is our contribution to ensuring that young people do not only become the consumers of the technologies that Vodacom contributes in developing. They should also be the developers and the innovators of these technologies. We see some of them who develop apps, and therefore they need to be recognized. And we believe that the Innovator Trust is the best platform for them to do that. We also have an e-learning platform, which we call the e-school, which has curriculum from grade R to grade 12. It's government approved curriculum. So far we have over 500,000 subscribers or registered users. And going forward, we are going to be adding Vodacom specific modules to align with the fourth industrial revolution. We are looking at adding coding, and we do have facilities here in the revamped Voda World, where we can bring the young people that are in the youth academies that are in this vicinity of Midrand to come and be taught coding. And we also provide, we also have a bursary program. We provide bursaries to best performing matriculants from 70% upwards. Our focus previously used to be mainly on the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But now we are inspired by the need to build soft skills, and therefore we are allowing into the program young people who want to go into the social sciences, so that we get young people to have softer skills, mainly skills related to problem solving, creative thinking, and critical thinking, and people management and negotiation, because those are the skills of the future. And those skills, of course, are not only required from the young people, also we ourselves as leaders. It is important that as we embrace the fourth industrial revolution, we need to reskill and upskill ourselves so that we remain relevant in this revolution as it unfolds.
So Taki, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point where things could have gone different?
I consider myself a very privileged person because where I am now, I can say it was a result of education. Again, going back to the values that my father instilled in all of us, and also hard work. But I also believe that it is not hard work and education alone. It is also luck. I believe that the grounding that I had in government, starting in the national security environment, which is a very closed environment which shapes the way you behave and the way you conduct yourself, was the best thing that ever happened to me. And of course, becoming an ambassador and representing my country abroad, I think is the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I am sure I'm going to be doing that again. So in my next life, when I am done with Vodacom, I am going back to diplomacy. So do I have any regrets in my life? No, I think everything in my life went according to plan. I had a dream to be self-sufficient and to be financially independent, and I think my journey has actually helped me to achieve what I dreamt about. But I know I have not done enough. One thing that inspires me is to look at the eyes and observe the facial expressions of the people that we give to through the Vodacom Foundation, listening to the testimonies of some of the beneficiaries of our programs, which is education and also fighting gender-based violence, which is a program that we run in partnership with the Department of Social Development. We have a gender-based violence command center which helps the victims of gender-based violence. When you listen to these testimonies, you just feel inspired, and that is when I realize how lucky I am, and I get inspired to drive my team to do more, because I consider myself lucky, and I know that there are a lot of people in the communities where we do our CSI work that are not as lucky as I have been. To give them hope gives me a great pleasure.
So Taki, what would you say is driving you today?
Today, what drives me, I am 50 years old. And I am at that age where I feel that I am comfortable with who I am. And I'm comfortable with myself. I do what I do not because I want to please the people around me. I do what I do because I enjoy it and I love it. Which is why I derive a lot of pleasure from the work that we do in corporate affairs, especially through the Vodacom Foundation. And I'm also grateful to work for this wonderful company whose objective is to change people's lives. Just by putting a device on somebody's hand, we're actually transforming their lives. And I am more inspired by the fourth industrial revolution, which is ushering digital technologies that are going to be changing the way we do things. We're talking about technologies such as the Internet of Things, big data analytics, machine learning. We're talking about 5G networks. These technologies promise massive digital transformation, not only for individuals, but also for industry verticals that support service delivery. And I am grateful to be part of a company that is in that leading space. One of the things that I wish most leaders should do is to understand more about the fourth industrial revolution and what these technologies entail and how they are going to change people's lives. How they're going to disrupt the way we do things, because whenever we engage with the young people, for instance, there is anxiety and excitement. Young people are not sure if they're still going to be having jobs in the next 5 years to 10 years, because the message that they get is that some of these technologies are going to phase out certain jobs, or they're going to replace human beings in executing certain tasks. Where we are in Vodacom, we say these technologies should not be seen as a threat. These digital technologies should be seen to complement the way we do things. And it is only if we read more about what these technologies entail and understand the impact that they're going to have in society that we will be able to all get excited. So I think there's a great future ahead of us with these technologies. For instance, if one talks about big data analytics and the raging debate that takes place in this country year on year when the metric results are announced, there's always skepticism about whether the results are a true reflection of the performance of the learners from grade R up to metric, because we know that about 1 million young people enter grade R, and only just over half of those sit for metric results. And the question is, what happens to the 300 or 400? It means they disappear somewhere in the system, which means either they fail and they are lagging behind, or they drop out altogether. And our view, or my view personally, is that people do not drop out because they do not have the capacity to understand what is being taught in class. People drop out because they lack the necessary support. It can be because they do not have the right support at home, or they do not have the right support in the classroom. Either the classrooms are too big and the teachers are not focusing. And therefore, we believe that through technologies such as big data analytics, we can be able to use its predictive capability and predict the dropout rates before they occur, which means then you isolate those kids who have the propensity to fail or to drop out or to get bored in the classroom, and you ensure that the teachers pay special attention to that. Now, if we look at these emerging digital technologies in this context, there has to be excitement, but there will be areas where robotics will replace some of the things that we do, or will phase us out in the tasks that we have been performing. When one watches programs on TV, you will see robots now preparing food. Are we now moving to an era where robots are going to serve as our domestic workers? And that is where reskilling comes in to say, if robots are going to be replacing human beings in certain designations, and therefore it is important for us as leaders in business, in civil society, and in government to start putting programs that will ensure that people are reskilled accordingly to be able to make an impact in the digital era.
Now, Taki, looking at leadership, what would you say, what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Yeah, leadership to me is about understanding one's weaknesses and strengths. Because when you understand your weaknesses and strengths, you are able to surround yourself with the tools and people that complement you. One thing that I tell myself now at the age of 50 is that I don't want to surround myself with people who do not add value to my life. And the people that would not add value to my life are people who are full of negative energy. You know, the kind of people that never have anything positive to say about the world. People who always see negativity. I distance myself from such people. I believe that if we need to prosper as a country, it is important to be always optimistic. And as we leap into the fourth industrial revolution, to embrace the emerging technologies. And I would want to give the example of the speech that was delivered by the president during his State of the Nation address. It is reported by some analysts as one of the most techno-oriented addresses since 1994. And I happened to attend an event about 3 weeks ago where the president was the keynote speaker. It was an education hosted by the Minister of Education. And he was speaking at length and very excitedly about the fourth industrial revolution. And he said, this is a new phenomenon. I studied without computers as a young person. But what I am doing now as the president is to read more about these technologies and how they are going to impact society. So I believe that that digital transformation thread that you see in his speech is because he dedicates a lot of time in empowering himself through reading. And I think that's the best thing that we need to do for ourselves as leaders. We need to lead by example. We need to embrace reading. We need to read about what is happening around us so that we are able to guide those that do not understand these new concepts. It should be us who go out there and talk to people who are in the rural areas and tell them about the benefits of these technologies, because the fourth industrial revolution is not only going to benefit a Vodacom subscriber. If we look at the Internet of Things, for instance, we are now connecting people with machines. We are now connecting machines with machines. If we are connecting to transform the industry verticals that support service delivery, such as health, education, and municipal services, you don't have to be a Vodacom subscriber to benefit from the fourth industrial revolution. For as long as you receive municipal service and Vodacom is providing technologies to improve service delivery in that space, it means you benefit. For as long as your child is in the public education space and Vodacom partners with the Department of Basic Education to deliver digital technologies such as the Internet of Things, where we will be providing virtual classrooms or using big data analytics, as I mentioned before, you will benefit. You don't have to be a Vodacom subscriber to benefit from our health programs that we run from a technology perspective with the Department of Health. For instance, we provide a stock visibility solution which assists government to monitor the availability of chronic medication. You don't have to be a Vodacom subscriber for as long as you suffer from a chronic disease and you depend on the public health care system. It means you benefit from the work that Vodacom does. So what gives me great pleasure is to know that I am part of this societal transformation through the modest contributions that Vodacom is making. And I also need to mention that one of the advantages that we have as Vodacom is that we operate in the bigger Vodafone family. And therefore we are able to take lessons from the other markets, and the other markets are able to take lessons from us. And what is important is that as we take lessons about the technological innovations, we do not just cut and paste. We have to understand the needs of the people in the communities in which we operate and say what are the right technologies to meet their needs, and then deploy them accordingly, because gone are those days where when you deploy products and services, it is just about revenues. Yes, we are a commercial entity. We have to collect revenues in order to be sustainable. There has to be shareholder value. But whatever we do should have the end result of empowering the communities. And as a result, in the Vodafone family, we have now come with a new program where we want to position ourselves as a purpose-led organization, which means that we want to get the communities to understand that everything that we do in the Vodafone family, everything that we do in Vodacom, be it through CSI or through our commercial offerings, our main objective is to transform society.
Now, Taki, when you speak to future leaders and maybe your future innovators and even your children, what is it you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
Education is the best foundation. And here I'm not only talking about formal education, I'm also talking about informal education, where young people should have a culture of reading, a culture of curiosity, because it is only when you are curious that you will be driven to want to solve societal problems. That is what future leaders should have. Those are the kind of attributes that future leaders should have. Curiosity to solve the challenges that the world is sitting with.
And what social, or how do you suggest future leaders should go about building their brand, their personal brand on social media? How should they go about communicating on social media?
Well, we are living in the era of social media activism, where 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it would take 24 hours to communicate a message. Now it happens instantaneously, just at the press of the button. So social media is making the world to be smaller. It has transformed the way we communicate. It has transformed the way we transact, because everything happens at a very high speed. But with social media, what young people in particular should be mindful of is to be circumspect on how they communicate and what they post. Because if you are not circumspect, you may regret. I know in Europe, for instance, through the GDPR, which is the data privacy regulations, they have come with a notion called the right to be forgotten. And this is to ensure that unpleasant information about you that is lying in any online platform, if it is no longer relevant for your life, it should be erased. Now, the reason why that notion will be introduced to be part of a policy or a law, it is because people have made mistakes in life, or people found themselves in a precarious position once in their life. And therefore, you now have to approach your Google and your Facebook to remove that information. Now, rather than wanting to fight Google and Facebook to erase your information. It's better to be circumspect and know that you are operating in a ubiquitous environment. What you post there is seen all over the world. Yes, there are privacy settings and security settings, but we know in this era of cyber security, those systems are not future-proof, and anybody can hack into your account. And therefore, whilst the world has become smaller and more dynamic through social media, circumspection is very important, especially for the young people.
And Taki, what would you suggest, what technologies or tools of technology should future leaders learn and master in order to move into the future?
The fourth industrial revolution lays down the framework because it is about emerging digital technologies. And what is interesting about these technologies is that there is a fusion between the technologies and humans. And therefore, it is important for us as leaders to understand these technologies. I've mentioned them before: big data analytics, machine learning, robotics, the internet of things. It is important for all of us as leaders to understand those technologies. One does not have to go back to school and study engineering or computer science. The information is available online, and it is written in a manner that is easy to understand for a layperson. For instance, I come from social sciences. I'm a lawyer by profession, but working for Vodacom inspires me to learn more about what the company does, because as the face of the company, as the ambassador of the company, I need to be confident and comfortable to talk about the offerings that the company offers in the community in which we operate. So it is more about curiosity, it is more about the appetite and the hunger to learn new things. People who don't read do not grow. You don't prosper if you don't read. Yes, reading can be tedious if you have too many things to do, but I think if you embrace reading as part of your life and make sure that in a month you learn a new concept, especially when we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, I think that will help a lot. And for our stakeholders, we have just revamped VodaWorld here in order to showcase what we mean by digital transformation. And we invite our stakeholders to come and have a walkabout so that we take you through our digital journey, so that when we talk about the power of the Internet of Things and what it does on industry verticals, you will be able to see some of the work that we have already done in the agricultural space, in the health space, and in the education space. We are also talking about digitizing the experience of our customers. Once you walk into VodaWorld, you are able to feel that. So I would invite you and any one of our stakeholders to come to VodaWorld, not just to transact, but to come to VodaWorld to learn more about the fourth industrial revolution. We are now working very closely with the Ministry of Telecommunications, because they are now driving the fourth industrial revolution program. And because we are already in an advanced stage as Vodacom, working within the Vodafone family, we believe that we can add value in this partnership between government, business, and civil society to ensure that digital transformation happens and nobody is left behind. What we need to be mindful of when we talk about digital transformation is to ensure that we don't leave anybody behind. We don't want to see these technologies perpetuating the existing digital divide. And the only way in which we can ensure that everybody benefits is when we talk about it in a demystified way and get the people to see that you may not benefit as an individual directly with Vodacom, but you can benefit through the partnership that Vodacom has with other partners, including government, especially where Vodacom supports government programs.
Now, Taki, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
Yeah, I've never been involved in a formal mentorship program, but in most of the organizations or designations that I was involved in, I've had the privilege of working with young people. So when I started in intelligence under Professor Finkheisom, one of the things that we needed to do was to set up the Ministry of Intelligence Services and moving it from the presidency. And then when I went to electronic communications, because it was a greenfield operation, we also had to employ a lot of young people who were fresh from school because there aren't a lot of skills in the cybersecurity space in the country, and I think also worldwide. And I do get feedback from most of the young people that I worked with that the fundamentals that I have introduced and instilled in their lives have actually helped to make them the people that they are. And I do have maybe two examples. I remember when we were setting up electronic communications company, and there was this young lady. She had just graduated in accounting, and she just joined us, and then I called her for a meeting. We were a small team of about 5, when you start a greenfields operation. So she walks into my office empty-handed without a notebook. So I said to her, no, you can't walk into my office empty-handed. Go and get a notebook. So she leaves my office, and I waited for 5 minutes. She didn't come back. 10 minutes, she's not coming back. Then I go outside to check, where is she? And then they say, no, she's sitting in the office next door. And then I go there, and I found her crying. I'm like, what is happening? She was so hysterical, she couldn't even talk. But then later she recollected herself, and she said, nobody has ever been so stern with me before. So she was terrified. And then fast forward to 5-6 years later, I left electronic communications and I became ambassador. And when I was gone, she also left for the States to do to proceed with her studies, to do an honors degree. And I think she also did a master's degree, and then she was doing her articles to be an accountant. And she had just been admitted. And then she sent me an email just from the blue to say, I want to thank you for making me the person that I am. Had you not been stern with me from day one, I would not have learned to pay attention to detail. So I do get that kind of feedback. Now, when you are working daily with people, there is never time to sit down and appreciate each other. And that is one thing that we need to learn as we leap into the 4th industrial revolution, learning more about soft skills, that we should set time aside to appreciate one another and talk about the value that each one of us are adding to our lives and to our careers. And again, I will repeat what I said. I have taken a resolve that I don't want to be surrounded by people who do not add value. I believe that there is no person that is useless in this life. Anybody given an opportunity can prosper. But those people who are just geared to just spread negative energy, I don't think they are the people that you need to surround yourself with. So yes, I have impacted lives, but I've never done it in a formal way. From time to time, I will get feedback that says, you are an inspiration. How did you manage to be where you are? Can you be my mentor? And unfortunately, even though I would want to run a formal mentorship program with 1 or 2 people, there isn't enough time to do that. So I do it at an informal basis. Whenever I have time, I would just pick up the phone and have a conversation with someone and inspire them. And I know that with that little contribution, I may change somebody's life. Because even to be where I am, there are people who invested time in me. I started as a ministerial advisor, mentored by one of the greatest lawyers in this country, Professor Finkheisom, who's now working in the United Nations. If he did not have confidence in me, I would not have worked in intelligence as a ministerial advisor and grow to be where I am. So we always have to remember where we come from.
So Taki, are there any role models of leadership that you would advise future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
I don't have any specific individuals because I pick different traits from different people. For me, what is important is to be comfortable with who you are and to stay truthful to oneself and conduct yourself with highest levels of integrity and ensure that you observe the ethics of your profession and also treat the people around you with respect and commit to giving back to the community in which you live, especially if you are privileged like myself, doing it in my private time and also doing it through Vodacom.
Well, Taki, thank you so much. Last but not least, please tell us how can our listeners connect with you and where should they follow you?
I'm not very active on social media in my personal capacity, and it is because of the reason that I mentioned, circumspection. Maybe I'm just not too confident of how I would present myself out there in such a manner that I will not regret having said certain things, because I see people say things and you have to withdraw your tweet or your post. It is not a good thing. I am available on social media through my professional designation. Also because I don't see any need to profile myself in my personal capacity. I think being profiled in my professional capacity is sufficient. So I am available on Facebook, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn through the work that I do representing the company. We always make sure with the media team that wherever we are sharing the work that Vodacom does, it is shared in the social media platforms, and I do get feedback. I am on LinkedIn, both professionally and in my personal capacity, and I'm grateful that I was on LinkedIn, because I don't think that if I was not on LinkedIn, Vodacom would have found me. So I posted myself on LinkedIn as advice from a colleague, and I do update my status on a regular basis, but it is not my obsession, really. But because I do not do it, I would not discourage others from doing it. The advice that I would give is that it should be done with circumspection. It may be sounding a little bit strange for a person who is the face and the ear and the eyes of the company to be circumspect about being in the social media space. I think what I need to remind everybody is that I work for a listed company, and therefore it's a very sensitive environment, and therefore one has to conduct oneself in a very responsible manner. And it's the same that applied to me when I was in intelligence. I see a relationship between the two environments, and therefore being profiled in my professional capacity for me is sufficient.
Well, Taki, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom and for helping us to build a better future.
Yes, thank you.